All right, I am now joined by a very, very special guest, Steve Murry. He is the head baseball coach at Neosho County Community College in Kansas. Coach, I know we've spoken a little bit on Twitter before this, but it's great to see you on Zoom. How are you doing, and how's everything in Neosho?
Well, can't complain. And even if we did, no one's going to listen. So it's all good.
I love it. So, like I said, I'm super excited to get to talk to you. I know I wanted to start with our mutual friend, though, Matt Strahm. The first time I interviewed him, he told this incredible story that went super viral on the internet about his time with you guys at Neosho. First, how proud of him are you seeing him go from that skinny kid who I think you had 23rd out of 24 pitchers to an MLB All Star?
It's an amazing story, but to Matt's credit, that dude works harder than most anybody and he always has, and he always responds to whether it's criticism or praise. And we knew he was going to do great things after about 3 weeks after we had the come to Jesus meeting in my office.
That meeting where I think, can you tell that side of the story where you were talking to your pitching coordinator who recruited him from that camp in Kansas?
Yeah, Matt remembers it a little different than I do, but that it probably lies somewhere in between our two stories. But I've always been the kind of guy that never let the facts stand in the way of a good story. So, Matt came and when Mike Sadler saw him, he was an 82, 83 left-handed arm with a great frame, obviously, to add some bulk and let him throw. When he came to us, his first outing in the fall, he was like 77, 78. Didn't think much about it. Was next outing, he was 78, 79. Still not good. And I brought him in my office and I said, dude, what are we doing? And I said, we can't afford to waste time and effort if that's what we're going to get. And I said, I was trying to inspire the young man, right? And Matt took it all literally, which is fine. All of a sudden, the next outing, 83, 84, next outing, 86, 87. And then it just kept climbing. And that dude probably had a chip on his shoulder from day one after that meeting. When we opened up the spring, he was sitting 88 to 90, and he just continued to get better from that day forward. And, again, that's a huge testament to Matt and his work ethic because you're not going to outwork that kid.
Have you ever seen as dramatic of an increase in velocity in somebody as with Matt? Because it sounds like he added 10 miles per hour in such a very short amount of time.
And he really did. But, it's funny because you get these three sport athletes that are probably too skinny when they come in, and when they start to put all their efforts towards baseball instead of adding football and basketball in, kids get a ton better. Now 10 miles an hour, that's pretty drastic for most kids, but you're going to see 5 and 6 in the majority of them, but most of those kids aren't left-handed either. So, he did a wonderful job and we're super proud of the kid.
It was such a great story. He said that like winter break, he went home and he was just throwing baseballs against a brick wall because he didn't have a catch partner. So when he came back that next spring, was it like very immediate, very evident that this was a completely different version of him?
It really did, but we had already known it was going to be a different version because in November and December we have our conditioning and our weights also, and you could just watch him, and his work ethic was incredible. He was getting after it every day. You could see physically he was getting stronger, and we just put the bats and balls down for those 2 months, so we knew what was going to happen in January. Now, to the success he had that first year, probably not as expected, but his second year, 100% expected.
That coaching style of, like you said, like trying to light a fire under guys to try to get the most out of them. How have you always had that kind of coaching style? Have you had to evolve it over the years? Like, and do some guys respond better than others to that?
Well, we haven't changed our coaching style since I took over almost 40 years ago, but that's as old school as it gets. But to me, you have to want it more than I want it for you. And that's kind of the, auspices that we go under. Um, if you light a fire under a kid, the kid all of a sudden responds or he doesn't respond. Those that don't respond, they're not going to be baseball players for very long. And those that do respond, they're going to get some results, not always to the extreme that Matt got. But we've sent tons of kids onto the Division 1 level and what have you, and those were not Division 1 kids when they came in. They just worked hard enough and accepted what they are, and that little fire under them goes a long ways.
I wanted to talk about, he mentioned that you guys, I don't know if you still do this, but you would scrimmage against each other in the fall, whereas other junior colleges would obviously go out and do other teams. How do you balance that, like, with your team, the competitiveness and trying to beat your fellow teammates while also trying to create that sense of like camaraderie and team building? Is that hard to do when you're having to, compete against your fellow teammates?
No, because we change the teams every single scrimmage. We post stats every Monday, and we do a different thing where we rank people every Monday also. Now, that's not for public, use, but our kids see those rankings every week. And so, you have ranked 10th or whatever it is, you want to move up. And as far as team building and that goes, dude, those kids are in the locker room an hour and a half before practice. They're staying an hour and a half after practice. There's not a whole lot to do in Chinook, Kansas, a town of 8,000. So, they chill with their teammates and they have a lot of fun. As far as competing against it, it's just human nature. I want to beat you. You want to beat me. Let's roll.
And that's true, because I think even Matt said that when he saw the rankings and he saw who was ahead of him, it's like, all right, I'm chasing that guy down. I know exactly who I have to get better than. You've talked about this mantra of like, there's always somebody better than you, so you always have to keep working hard. How did you kind of come up with that? And like, is that something that you still preach, obviously, still to this day?
It is. It's something we tell kids is just because you're the best kid on this team doesn't mean you're the best kid in the conference. And if you're the best kid in the conference, doesn't mean you're the best kid in the country. And if you're the best kid in the country, hell, there's other foreign countries that have kids that are better than you too. So baseball's a humbling sport. We can never be perfect. All right. So you're always chasing something higher you can't achieve. In bowling, I can get a perfect game. But the next game isn't going to be a perfect game. And it's the same way with pitching or hitting or fielding or whatever. There's always something to get better at.
One thing that we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and obviously it's very important to you, is the mental side of the game. How do you help guys become the best versions of themselves on and off the field?
Well, we try to make you comfortable in the uncomfortable because I'll promise when Matt's throwing in front of 50,000 people, that can get to a lot of people. And Matt's first taste of that probably came at the JUCO World Series, and he threw extremely well. I always tell kids, and probably get in trouble for it, but you have two choices when you're pitching in front of that many people. You can either pee your pants or you can show off your skills. And depending on you as a human, we'll see what happens. Now, along the way, we have a thing at the end of October called the Panther Idol. And it's basically every kid gets up and sings in front of, and our basketball teams come, our soccer teams come, our cheer dance. That's pretty uncomfortable, especially if your voice sucks, right? But, being out on the mound with the bases loaded, no outs, that's pretty uncomfortable also. So basically what we want to do is just make kids feel good in their own skin and just let their talent take over, get around the mental side, quit worrying about stuff, control what you can control. And it's worked for us to this point.
Is being a kind of mentor to these guys, it's obviously a very formative time in their lives, 18, 20, however old they are when they come to you. Still very young, still trying to figure out who they are. Is being a mentor to those guys something that you take lightly?
Oh, I love it. I mean, to be honest with you, you every day you watch a kid grow. And, I have kids from 39 years ago that still write me, call me, text me, what have you. And it's so fun to watch them be dads and watch them be husbands and things like that, and know that you had just a small part of it. So we try to, we talk at the end of every practice and we'll bring up some life situations. We have a kid going through it right now. His mom just got diagnosed with cancer and, it doesn't look great. Well, it's terrible. Don't get me wrong. That's awful. But, life's going to move on. And, I tell them you're going to get punched in the face a lot during your life. But as long as you can handle it, everything's good. So yeah, mentoring them on and off the field is kind of our entire goal, and make them become better human beings.
Especially too because being a junior college, you're catching guys from all sorts of like periods of their lives when they come to you. I was reading a story about one of your other MLB guys, David Bote, came to you guys after getting cut from Liberty. That's obviously, I'm sure that was super hard for him at the time. Like, how do you take a guy like David and as a coach, like help guide him through that difficult period in his life to tell him like, hey man, you're good. You got what it takes.
Well, it's funny because we don't do the 5-star athletes here, even though they're in 5 stars in baseball. But, the kids we get are the kids that, if they work really hard, can end up being D1 guys. And we had recruited Dave his junior year, and he had told us, I'm coming unless I get a Division 1 offer. Well, he got that Division 1 offer, and they ended up cutting him at semester. And they also told him, you're not good enough to be an infielder. You might want to switch to be an outfielder. So he calls, transfers at semester, starts for us at shortstop. We go to the World Series. He performs super well, gets drafted by the Cubs. And then I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, he started at first, second, short, and third all in one season. And yet he wasn't good enough to be a Division 1 infielder. So other people's opinions of you really don't matter. It's what your opinion of yourself is. Jonah Bride, who plays for the Marlins right now, got DH'd for his senior year of high school. They told him he couldn't hit. And, and now you watch him and you're like, dude, that's what you do well. And the first time we laid eyes on him, we had to convince him that he could hit. And he can. I mean, he's a great hitter. But kids got to learn to believe in themselves.
From the talent evaluation perspective of you guys, like from whether it be going to a tryout camp to see Matt, or you see a guy like David who's told that he couldn't do it, like how do you guys evaluate players, and how is it different than some of these other colleges that they're going to?
Well, Mike Gilner does our recruiting, does a super job. We go to a lot of showcases, but we like to lay eyes on every single kid. And the reason for that is, your uncle's opinion of you as a player really doesn't matter to us. And, you know, unfortunately, your coach probably is too bought into you as a human being to give us an adequate, perception of you. So if we lay eyes on him, it's way easier for us to see how he could develop in our program. And again, we're not doing the 5-star kids. We're doing the good high school kid that can eventually be a good college player. Hopefully they'll all end up going pro, but that isn't going to happen. But we've been lucky enough to have 60 of them sign professional contracts, which is, a big thing. And that's every kid that walks through these doors has that aspiration of being a pro guy. It's not going to work out for a lot of kids because that's a tough life. But you see the harder workers go a little bit further. But the one thing that we want is that they walk out of here knowing they're a better person and that they believe in themselves.
How is having guys like Matt and Dave and Jonah, how has that helped kind of elevate your program?
Uh, a lot, especially social media wise. Andy Young was a kid that played for the Nationals and the Diamondbacks, and that kid, nobody wanted him out of high school at all. And he comes to our program, ends up signing Division 1, that goes pro. So those kids, by word of mouth, it goes a long ways in recruiting. Now they see Matt Strahm All-Star, that goes even further, right? And those kids still keep in touch. Matt comes back all the time, and they take as does Jonah, and they take the time to speak with our kids, question and answer period that stays behind locker room doors, because these kids aspire to be those guys. And so they'll ask them as much as, how much sleep do you get? And how's the women life? And, things like that. And it's pretty cool to listen to the perspective of somebody that was once them, but now's a superstar or whatever.
Have there been more scouts, more notoriety, and more, kind of emphasis placed on your program after, guys like that we just talked about have gone on to have such great success?
No, but I think there's more belief when a scout calls you. They're like, okay, you've been through this, you've done this with this kid. So they I guess they believe you more, so to speak. They're still going to lay eyes on him, trust me. But by the same token, I think the notoriety of having kids like that lends to, uh, a little more respect, let's say. So yeah, it's definitely helped for sure.
I think one of the advantages too of junior college baseball is just like the opportunities that you have for guys that we've talked about. Like what and obviously it makes it very appealing. I'm sure there's no shortage of guys who would like to have those opportunities. What's kind of like been your approach for like getting guys the playing time and the opportunities to be seen?
Well, the different thing about our program is this. We're in a full ride conference, but we don't have full rides. So that's immediate change. We play in a conference where 50 to 60 kids in the fall is the norm. We've never had more than 34. So every kid that comes in here is going to have an opportunity. We don't over recruit, and we don't have time to mess around with, a turd type kid. So we bust their butt all fall long. They get better. And it's kind of cool to watch those kids progress, knowing they're going to get an opportunity at this school if we recruit you.
Do other junior colleges have 50 and 60 players on their roster?
Dude, I could tell you, there's a school, and I won't even mention the state, that had 113 last fall. There was a team that went to the World Series last year that had 91 in the fall. So 60 is a norm because it's let the cream rise to the top. And is that over recruiting? To me, it is, but to them, they're like next man up. But we don't fall prey to that. Like I say, I'm not going into the transfer portal. We're not doing that stuff. We're going to take the high school kid, we're going to develop him and see where we can go from there.
I feel like having that many players is one, it's the dugout must be insane, but like it's just like a detriment to their development. It's just having
Well,
that many players around you.
but again, by the time they get to spring, they're going to have cut down to their 35. But, I'd have a hard time bringing mom and dad in here. Linda and Tim Strahm come in here and me tell them their kid's going to get a chance and he's one of 40 pitchers. I'm not going to do that. We're able to tell every kid in a perfect world, we would have two at every single position and have 14 pitchers and we'd go. And it's not always like that, but a lot of times it is. And so an injury here, an injury there really, really hurts you. But by the same token, that's where we do the next man up, not the next 15 up. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
different. It's kind of the wild, wild west now in college athletics.
I love that. I had a couple last questions for you, Coach.
Okay.
So when was your first year at Neosho? Was it 1987?
Oh, Lord. Let me look. Yes, 1987. Hell, I'm old. I got to try to remember that kind of stuff.
That's such an incredible run. How have you seen coaching? Like, how have you seen the sport of junior college baseball evolve in your time there? Have you had to adapt to the times? Like, how has it kind of been different since day one to now?
Well, I don't want to sound like your parents used to sound, where they walked barefoot, uphill in the snow. But we didn't even have damn computers when we started. The internet was not a thing. Cell phones was not a thing. So recruiting in the olden days was literally word of mouth, and then you traveled all over the place in the Midwest trying to find players. Now you have instant access. I can watch a kid on live stream. We can, do this, do that. Showcases are everywhere. They weren't a thing back then. Everybody played Legion ball. So, technology's changed a ton. The animal of how you get recruited has changed a ton. It used to be we'd see a kid in March and sign him in April, and then he'd arrive on campus in August. Now you got to look at a kid 3 years before he's even a senior in high school and start adding a list. It's kind of annoying, to be honest with you, because like I got a an email this morning from a 2030 kid wanting to be recruited. And you're sitting there going, dude, like, have you even hit puberty yet? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy how many parents get involved, how many, aunts, uncles. I got this kid, he's going to be the next Ken Griffey Jr. And you're like, oh, Lord, here we go. But, by the time you kind of move all the crap over to the right, it all works out. And, it's a fun, I guess, job to be a coach. But by the same token, you're seeing a lot of coaches get out of it because it is the wild, wild west with the NILs and the, roster spots and all that kind of stuff. So, but it's fun. I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
I love that. When you see a kid that you're interested in, maybe not class of 2030, but what is your what is your recruiting pitch? What are some of the key points you highlight about why they should come to Neosho County Community College?
Our biggest thing, you're going to get an opportunity. We have phenomenal facilities. You know, we get, we always tell them we're going to coach you at the next level so that when you get to the next level, you'll be prepared. We also tell you we're going to be a human life coach, meaning you're going to get some grades while you're here. And if you don't want those kind of things, if you don't want that hard coaching, don't come here because we're going to stretch it out on every single part of your life. We're not going to have a kid leave here that can't pass a class and things like that. We're not going to put our name on it, you. And so we just tell kids if you want to go as far as you can, this is a great place for you because you're going to get the opportunities and you're going to get the exposure.
I know one thing that you're super proud of is the near 100% graduation rate among your players. Does that just like speak to the kind of culture and the kind of program that you run that, you're not coming here just to play baseball. Like we're going to make you a well-rounded person, like you mentioned.
I think that's one of our biggest things that we tell parents, especially in the recruiting pitch, is we'd all love to play baseball the rest of our lives. That's not going to work out for very many of us, right? Matt's got plenty of money; he doesn't have to work. I get that, but for every Matt, there's 200 other kids that they're going to have to go get a job at some point in their life, and we want you to be prepared for that. And so we prepare them as a human being, we prepare them as an academic kid, and we prepare them as an athlete. And if we do those three things, wins and losses take care of themselves.
I love that. All right, coach, it's been incredible. I have one last question for you. What is the most rewarding part of your job?
Watching kids 10 years from now, after they're through with the program, what did you do with your life? Are you a good husband? Do you raise your kids correctly? And then talking to those people when they call me to wish me happy birthday or just to ask what's going on, that's pretty dang rewarding. You know what I mean? It sure as hell ain't the money. Because I could have done a lot of jobs where I could have made a lot more money. So relationships are kind of what it's all about. And we tend to do that. And that's a kid, you yelled and screamed at maybe, but they learned a lesson and they understand it 10 years from now and they appreciate it. So I would say relationships are definitely there.
That's the best. Coach, I can't say how much I appreciate your time this morning. It really means a lot to have you hop on for a couple minutes.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of everything. I'm a big fan of your Twitter fingers, as Matt would say. It's such a fun thing to follow you guys in your program out there in Kansas. So thank you so much for your time and best of luck rest of the way.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.